In the early hours of January 8, 2020, the world held its breath as ballistic missiles streaked across the Iraqi sky. Their destination: Al Asad Air Base, home to hundreds of American troops. This wasn't just another Middle Eastern skirmish. This was Iran directly attacking a United States military installation, marking the first time in decades that the Islamic Republic had openly struck American forces. But what led to this unprecedented escalation? And perhaps more intriguingly, this wasn't the first time Iran had caught America off guard. The story of Iran's confrontations with American power spans over 4 decades, revealing a pattern of strategic boldness that has repeatedly shocked the world's most powerful military. From the depths of the Persian Gulf to the deserts of Iraq, Iran has demonstrated time and again that it is willing to challenge American dominance in ways that few nations would dare attempt. To understand the missile strikes of January 2020, we must first journey back 5 days earlier to Baghdad International Airport. On January 3, 2020, a convoy of vehicles moved through the darkness, carrying one of the most influential figures in Middle Eastern geopolitics. Qasem Soleimani, an Iranian major general, was killed by an American drone strike ordered by U.S. President Donald Trump near Baghdad International Airport in Iraq, while traveling to meet Iraqi Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi. But Soleimani was no ordinary general. From 1998 until his assassination by the United States in 2020, he was the commander of the Quds Force, a NIRGC division primarily responsible for extraterritorial and clandestine military operations, and played a key role in the Syrian civil war through securing Russian intervention. Known as the Shadow Commander, he was Iran's most powerful military strategist and the architect of Iranian influence across the Middle East. The assassination sent shockwaves through Tehran. Here was a man who had been instrumental in Iran's regional power projection, eliminated in a single drone strike. The Iranian government faced a critical decision: how to respond to what they viewed as an act of war against their most important military leader. The answer came swiftly and decisively. Iran announced that it would retaliate directly against American forces, a declaration that sent diplomatic circles into overdrive. On the 8th of January 2020, Iranian forces launched ballistic missiles at the Al Asad Air Base and an airbase near Erbil, both in Iraq, where American personnel were located. This wasn't the usual proxy warfare that had defined Iran-US confrontations. This was a promise of direct military action. What followed was unprecedented in modern Middle Eastern conflict. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps declared that the strikes were part of their retaliation for the killing of Soleimani. The operation, dubbed Operation Martyr Soleimani, was executed with surgical precision. According to the Iraqi military, 22 missiles were fired between 1:45 a.m. and 2:15 a.m. local, 17 toward Al Asad base and 5 at Erbil. Iran launched 27 theater ballistic missiles into Iraq early on the 8th of January 2020. These weren't crude rockets or improvised weapons. These were sophisticated ballistic missiles, capable of precise targeting. The attack caught the world's attention not just for its boldness, but for its strategic calculation. Initially, President Trump claimed there were no casualties, but the reality was far more complex. 11 landed at Al Asad, wounding dozens of U.S. troops and gouging deep craters in an attack that authorities said was intended to kill. Once it was determined that TB-MIs were directed towards Al Asad, the base was evacuated, leaving approximately 330 military personnel to continue operations. The missiles struck with devastating accuracy, hitting aircraft hangars, fuel depots, and command centers. The psychological impact was profound. Soldiers described temporary blindness, unconsciousness, and severe neurological symptoms. After the U.S. assassinated top Iranian general Qasem Soleimani in January 2020, Tehran fired 16 missiles at bases hosting U.S. forces in Iraq. Over 100 American service members suffered traumatic brain injuries from the blasts. Yet remarkably, Iran had achieved something unprecedented. It had directly struck American military installations and lived to tell the tale. Using their domestically produced Sevam-corded missile system, Iranian forces managed to track and engage the high-altitude drone. But this confrontation was not Iran's first shocking challenge to American military supremacy. Rewind to June 2019, when Iran demonstrated its technological capabilities in a way that left Pentagon officials stunned. The target was one of America's most advanced surveillance aircraft, the RQ-4 Global Hawk drone, worth approximately $60 million. This wasn't just any aircraft. The Global Hawk represents the pinnacle of American surveillance technology. Flying at altitudes of 60,000 feet, well above the range of most surface-to-air missile systems, it was considered virtually untouchable. The drone had been conducting surveillance missions over the Persian Gulf, monitoring Iranian military movements during a period of heightened tensions. Iran's response was swift and decisive. In a matter of seconds, the sophisticated American aircraft was reduced to debris falling into the Persian Gulf waters. American warships would escort Kuwaiti tankers through the Persian Gulf, protecting them from Iranian attacks. The technological implications were staggering. Iran had demonstrated that its missile systems could effectively engage targets at extreme altitudes, a capability that many Western intelligence agencies had underestimated. The loss of the Global Hawk was not just a financial blow. It was a strategic revelation that Iran possessed more advanced air defense capabilities than previously understood. President Trump reportedly came close to ordering retaliatory strikes against Iranian installations, but ultimately decided against military action. The incident marked a turning point in U.S.-Iran relations, showing that Tehran was willing to directly engage American military assets when it felt its sovereignty was threatened. To understand Iran's willingness to confront American power, we must examine the most extensive naval confrontation between the two nations. The events of 1987–1988 during the Iran-Iraq War. This period, known as the Tanker War, saw Iran employ tactics that would ultimately sink an American warship and challenge U.S. naval supremacy in the Persian Gulf. The background was complex. During the Iran-Iraq War, Iran had begun targeting Kuwaiti oil tankers, threatening global oil supplies. In response, the United States launched Operation Earnest Will, one of the largest naval convoy operations since World War II. To strengthen this protection, the U.S. allowed Kuwait to reflag many of its tankers with American flags. This meant that any attack on these vessels would be considered an attack on American interests, theoretically deterring Iranian aggression. Iran initially restrained itself from attacking reflagged vessels, but this restraint wouldn't last forever. On October 16, 1987, the MV Sea City, a Kuwaiti tanker flying the American flag, became the target of an Iranian Silkworm missile. Attached to chains and anchor weights, they were positioned approximately 5 meters below the surface, precisely the depth needed to target large vessels whose hulls extended deep into the water. This Chinese-made subsonic missile struck the ship's bridge directly, injuring 8 crew members and blinding the American captain. This attack marked the first time Iran had directly targeted an American-flagged vessel. The message was clear. Iran would not be intimidated by American naval power, even when it meant directly confronting a superpower. The American response was swift. 3 days later, U.S. naval forces destroyed 2 Iranian oil platforms in the Persian Gulf. These platforms, while not actively producing oil, were being used by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps for military purposes. The escalation was reaching dangerous levels. But Iran's most shocking blow to American naval power came through an ingenious and devastatingly simple tactic: naval mines. During Operation Earnest Will, Iranian forces had quietly deployed a network of contact mines throughout the Persian Gulf. These weren't the floating mines of World War II fame, these were far more sophisticated. The Iranian mines were anchored beneath the surface at calculated depths. Small boats could pass over them harmlessly, but any large ship would trigger the explosive devices. On April 14, 1988, the USS Samuel B. Roberts, a guided missile frigate, fell victim to this underwater trap. The ship had just arrived in the Persian Gulf to participate in Operation Earnest Will when it struck one of these contact mines. The explosion was catastrophic. The ship's hull was torn open for 21 feet. The engine room flooded and 2 turbines were destroyed. The mathematical precision of Iran's strategy was remarkable. A mine costing approximately $500 had crippled a warship worth $57 million. The Samuel B. Roberts, though it didn't sink, was effectively neutralized as a fighting force. Following the mining incident, U.S. forces discovered an entire network of Iranian mines scattered throughout the Persian Gulf. Revelation was sobering. Iran had managed to turn one of the world's most important waterways into a potential death trap for naval vessels. 4 days after the Samuel B. Roberts incident, U.S. forces launched a major retaliatory operation. American ships, aircraft, and troops attacked 2 Iranian oil platforms and sank the Iranian warship Jashan. The operation also cost American lives. A Marine helicopter crashed during the action, killing 2 pilots. Perhaps the most symbolically significant of Iran's confrontations with American power came through the attack on the MV Sea Isle City. This incident deserves closer examination because it represented a crucial escalation in Iran's willingness to directly challenge American interests. The Silkworm missile that struck the American-flagged tanker was a Chinese-made weapon system that Iran had acquired and modified for its own purposes. With a range of 120 kilometers and weighing 3,000 kilograms, it was a formidable anti-ship weapon. The missile's subsonic speed made it detectable by radar, but its warhead was large enough to cause significant damage to any vessel it struck. The attack was particularly shocking because it occurred when no American naval vessels were in the immediate vicinity. Iranian forces had patiently waited for the right moment when the tanker was relatively isolated and vulnerable. The precision of the strike, hitting the ship's bridge directly, demonstrated sophisticated targeting capabilities. The captain of the Sea Isle City, an American citizen, suffered facial injuries that resulted in permanent blindness. The symbolic impact was profound. Iran had literally blinded an American mariner in its first direct attack on an American-flagged vessel. This incident marked a turning point in Iran's confrontational strategy. It showed that Tehran was willing to cross red lines that many other nations would not dare approach. The attack on an American-flagged vessel was, in essence, an attack on American sovereignty, yet Iran had calculated that the U.S. would not risk a wider war over a single tanker. What makes Iran's confrontations with American power so remarkable is not just their audacity, but their strategic calculation. In each instance, Iran demonstrated an understanding of American decision-making processes and a willingness to push boundaries while avoiding total war. The pattern is consistent across all 4 major confrontations. Iran strikes first, often with devastating effect, but carefully calibrates its response to avoid triggering overwhelming American retaliation. In 2020, Iran even reportedly warned Iraqi forces before the missile strike, ensuring that casualties would be limited while still demonstrating its capabilities. This strategy reflects Iran's unique position in the Middle East. Unlike many other nations, Iran has developed indigenous military capabilities that allow it to project power far beyond its borders. The Quds Force, which Soleimani commanded, represents one of the most effective unconventional military organizations in the world. Iran's missile program, often underestimated by Western intelligence, has proven capable of precision strikes at significant distances. The accuracy demonstrated in the Al-Asad attack hitting specific buildings and infrastructure revealed technological sophistication that caught many observers off guard. The naval mining tactics employed during the tanker war showed Iran's ability to turn asymmetric warfare into a strategic advantage. By threatening one of the world's most important shipping lanes, Iran demonstrated that it could inflict economic damage far beyond the military sphere. These four confrontations reveal a broader truth about Iran's approach to international relations. Since the 1979 revolution, Iran has consistently demonstrated that it will not be intimidated by American power, even when facing overwhelming military superiority. This willingness to confront American forces directly sets Iran apart from most other nations. While many countries might engage in proxy warfare or diplomatic confrontation, Iran has repeatedly chosen to strike directly at American military assets and interests. The implications for regional stability are profound. Iran's demonstrated capabilities, from precision missile strikes to advanced naval warfare, have forced American strategists to reconsider their assumptions about Middle Eastern power dynamics. Despite overwhelming military superiority, the United States has repeatedly found itself responding to Iranian initiatives rather than dictating the terms of engagement. The recent missile strikes in 2025 on American bases in the Middle East demonstrate that this pattern of direct confrontation remains a cornerstone of Iranian strategy. Each confrontation has also revealed the limitations of American power projection. The story of Iran's confrontations with American power continues to evolve. What these four historic confrontations reveal is a nation that has consistently been willing to challenge the world's most powerful military. From the sophisticated missile strikes of Operation Martyr Soleimani to the ingenious naval mines of the tanker war, Iran has repeatedly demonstrated that technological innovation and strategic boldness can sometimes overcome raw military power. The assassination of Qasem Soleimani was meant to weaken Iran's regional influence, but the subsequent missile strikes showed that Iran's capacity for direct confrontation remains undiminished. The precision of those strikes, the advanced technology employed, and the strategic calculation behind them all echo the patterns established in previous decades. As tensions continue to simmer in the Middle East, these historical confrontations serve as important reminders of Iran's willingness to escalate conflicts in ways that consistently shock the international community. The question remains, what future confrontations might emerge from this long-standing rivalry between the Islamic Republic and the American superpower? The answer, if history is any guide, will likely surprise us all.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more engaging historical content.